So for our next presenter, we are going to move around the world again, and we're going to go back. We're going to go to Stockholm this time. And it's my pleasure to welcome Emma to the stage. Welcome, Emma. I believe your background is mainly opera at the moment. Currently,
It's not, actually.
Oh,
I've
well.
done theater, opera, music,
Ah.
exhibitions, even like design of aquariums once upon a time.
Wow. Well, and today you're going to tell us about your journey.
I'm going to talk about my journey.
Over to you.
Thank you. Let me see. That was the way. So, hello. My name is Emma Weil, and I'm from Sweden, Stockholm. And my current position is as head of light, sound, and video at the Royal Dramatic Theatre, no, the Royal Opera in Stockholm. I used to work at the Dramatic Theatre. And I'm sitting here, I'm wondering, what on earth can I tell you about lighting and this industry that you don't already know? And that you want to listen to for the next 30 minutes. But after much agony, I decided to talk about what I've done, but also what has been helpful in my career so far. But first, a little about me in numbers. I'm 47 years old. I started with lighting at the age of 14. I was very stubborn. I've done around 60 theater shows, 60 opera shows. I've done around 30 dance shows. I've done 10 exhibits. I've worked on 6 Eurovision Song Contests. I've done 5 world tours in music. And I've had 1 crash. So, between the years 1993 and 1997, I went from young to young and eager, and then to young and promising. I went from knowing nothing to running theater shows in a very short time. After school, I worked in a local music club. I was running the lights for the bands that were playing there in the weekends. And I had really good teachers. They helped me get time off school so I could pursue my lighting career. And in the evenings of this nightclub, you don't really know much about the bands coming, but I got the notes of what they wanted, of their set list, written down on napkins, and then off I went. And my first real job, it was given to me after I sent in a letter. You know, the paper version? To a friend of one of my teachers, and this guy was a lighting director at a small opera house in Stockholm. And my letter, it ended up in a binder where all the letters came in. And this binder was called the Dum-Dum folder. So all the letters of applicants ended up there. And one day, one of the lighting techs at this little opera house, he was going to design a show of his own. So he looked through this binder, and he picked my name and gave me a call. So I got the job. I didn't dare to say that I didn't really know much. He gave me a tour of this little theater, and he showed me, here's the Max box. And I had no idea what a Max box was at the time. I didn't dare to ask because maybe then I wouldn't get the job. So I just moved on. And I had my fingers crossed that this Max box would never break, because then I was in big trouble. And this was my first big encounter with trust. This young LD had a complete faith in me. And that trust can do wonders to a person. It gave me confidence that I had something to bring to the table. And early on, I start working extra at this vendor, local rental company. We clean the lights, we prep them, we pack the cases, but we're also sent out to do gigs. We're given a few cases of gear, a very, very short brief, an address, a phone number, and then we went off with the truck. Here again, it's trust. This vendor really trusts the employees right there and then, even though we didn't know much. And at one time, we're sitting in the coffee room at this rental company. It's called Spectra. Doesn't exist anymore. And Micke from the office comes in, and he says that this producer is looking for a lighting director who can both do light design, program lights, and read sheet music. And this lighting director they're looking for will also be an assistant to the lighting designer with capital letters LD. His name was Hans-Åke Sjöqvist. Hans-Åke was a legend. The first designer in Sweden to freelance as a lighting designer. He was the first one that was educated at Yale University in the US. And he fought for lighting design to be recognized as an art form. And I had never done a major job where I was solely responsible for the lighting technology, and I had, at this time, no ambition to be a light designer. However, I could read sheet music. So I said, I'll do it. And of course, a big void opened up. I was scared. What did I just say? But to my surprise, I got the job. And then and there, I started the best school that I could go to. The one where practical work is combined with great challenges and also an enormous trust. The first 8 years of my career, they go by very quickly. The jobs are spinning. I work as assistant to Hans-Åke, but also to other designers. And we're traveling around Europe, designing shows. We often have 2 or 3 shows running at the same time. We leave notes to each other on the director's tables. This has to be done. I just finished this task. Can you please continue with whatever it was? There are lists, documentations, drawings, sketches in the script, etc. I'm also starting to do my own design assignments, mainly focused on modern dance. Dance light is then an expression that suits me well. It gives me the opportunity for both free interpretation, but also big expressions. And it's a feeling of there are no rules. In 2004, I crash. And I do it during the premiere of Tristan and Isolde at the Royal Opera in Stockholm with a big bang, great music. I'd worked on the production for 2 months as an LD assistant to the LD that actually gave me my first real job back in the day. In hindsight, I think the music broke the last barrier of my defense, that it overwhelmed me. But I think it happened sooner or later anyway. Just before this crash, I got an offer to do light design for this Irish singer-songwriter. Name was, or is, Damien Rice. Damien, he'd seen one of my dance shows, that I designed and wanted me to do a show. Then I couldn't, or at least so I thought. I had assignment for others that I didn't want to turn down. So instead I said no to Damien. Then at that point, I was both relieved, but also felt like I missed a huge opportunity. For years, I had pushed myself to be better. I wanted to be the best. And in the end, I couldn't see a difference between the personal and private Emma and my professional self. The word no didn't exist. I was afraid that if I turned down an assignment, I would never be asked again. And I was on sick leave for exhaustion, depression for 2.5 years. My body and mind had been worn out of all the workload. In the first 1.5 years, I fought it like a good girl. I tried all sorts of things to get well. I took it on as an assignment. I studied it. I tried to nail it and to read what could help to get me in a better position. But nothing did. There wasn't a quick fix, not a manual to follow. I tried to get back to work, to do simple tasks at a local vendor. But I compared myself to the person I was before the crash, a person that could take on massive tasks. And now I sat there sorting gels, and I couldn't even handle that. And that didn't make me feel any better. But my way back came in 2 steps. The first step was trying something that I didn't know how to do, to get out of my comfort zone and do something that you had to learn without reading about it. Instead, practice it. I started as an apprentice in an upholstery shop. I was redoing old furniture. It was such a relief to do something that was practical, something that would last and hopefully be enjoyed in someone's home for many, many years. I used my hands, and I didn't use my head. It was slow, it was tactile, and it was a beautiful and very, very hard process. It also felt to me like the opposite of lighting. Lighting to me then was a very brief thing. As soon as you turn off a light, it's gone. The show was over when you go home. And slowly but surely, I started to come back to normalcy. And one day in July, the phone rings. So in the middle of me trying another career as an upholsterer, Damien Rice calls again. There's a new tour coming up. And could I maybe come and do this one for him? Since I, at this point, have no lighting assignment, I have no real job apart from my apprentice work. I agreed to come and do 1 show in Dublin and 1 festival. I'm curious to see if I can come back to lighting again. And in Dublin, no one knows me from before, who I was, how I used to work, and they did not know anything about my history. Damien only knew that he liked the show that he'd seen where I'd done the light design. So both Damien and the management trusted that I could add something to the show that they needed. And this thing, going to a place where I wasn't known by anyone, I could focus on who I was then and there, not someone I was before. It was magical. It was fun, but also scary. It also felt okay to fail in another country. Of course, they didn't know me, and going back home wouldn't feel so bad. wrong way. And the 2 gigs, they turned into a world tour, 154 gigs. We did small clubs to big arenas and festivals. The thing was, I came from a theater background, but Damien, he didn't use a set list. He had 4 versions of every song, and he wasn't afraid to make up songs during a gig. And as a theater person, I was used to building cues and fine-tune them before storing them in a cue stack. I could spend loads of time to get the right timing of a cue, of all the components in a cue. But here, I had to let it all go. I had to take on a new approach, to stop controlling the moment and be in the moment instead. Busk. But busking was hard. I was told I was acting like a secretary during the gig, all about programming. But I got the best teachers to help me take on this new approach. His name was, or is, Paul Normandale. He's a big light designer in England. He is at Light Alt Design outside of Manchester. And he went with me to upstaging in Sycamore to help me prep and get me ready for one of the first legs of the Damien tour. Still respectful to my design, he coached me to stop thinking and to prepare the console so that I could take on any task with ease and get absorbed with the music and run the show through my eyes. It was such a huge relief when I mastered it. I could be in the moment. The shows were fun, they were more intuitive, and when we were all in sync, it was a pretty amazing feeling. After the Damien tour was over, Paul entrusted me with some of his clients, like Björk, Antony and the Johnsons, Rufus Wainwright, and some stayed with me for 8 to 10 years. At one point, I remember when Paul and I set up a one-off with Antony at the Radio City Music Hall in New York. The show was curated by MoMA. It was one of those big-ass one-off shows that you can't really fail. We had no time to do pre-programming. We had a get-in at 8 in the morning, and we had doors at 7 p.m. and 2 times of dark stage in between. We managed to do a great show only by having enough faders to get through the show. I think we used a full-size MA and 2 sets of fader wings. It was a very wide front of house. And we used the busking technique for the show, even though it was very much pinned down to exact looks and cues. Touring the world teaches you a lot about the cultural differences in the workplace. In Sweden, for instance, the workplace is a social space where you tend to be very personal, for good and bad. Good in the way that you can feel at home and grow a personal relationship at the workplace. The bad side, I think, is that it's hard to draw a line between you and your role at work. That makes it hard to receive both positive feedback, but also corrective feedback. There is a very undefined line between work and personal relationships. England and the US, for instance, are better to make a distinction between your professional role and you. It's easier to work within a hierarchy with clear instructions, with people not getting offended. And touring mostly then with British people, that taught me that feedback doesn't reflect on me as a person, only the way I perform at work. And this knowledge is now a key in how I act in my profession. But touring also keeps you away from your friends at home. And yes, of course, you're fortunate to see the world. And yes, you make lifelong friends on the road as well, and in many, many countries. But I missed the normalcy at home. And I wanted a family. How could I bring a kid on a tour bus? It seemed so easy for my male colleagues with family back home. But I thought it was impossible for me as a woman. But I also had a feeling of being very lonely in the design process. I wanted to be part of a team, to work with something that could evolve over time. So I got lucky. I got the opportunity to start my own unit at the Dramatic Theatre in Stockholm as head of development. And this unit, which we had our main focus was on development on new theater methods. We did investments and we also did extensive training. I still did some freelance work, but I started to slowly focus more on group development, management, and leadership. And here is where I am now. Today, I work as head of light, sound, and video at the Royal Opera in Stockholm. And we're a great department of 35 people, and some of us are here today as well. I focus on getting productions in a manageable size, a really hard job. I'm meeting the teams early on. They need to understand our limitations. They come with big ideas, but we don't have enough time or manpower to realize all their ideas, so we need to keep them within our framework. I also focus on investments, leadership, as well as organizational and social work environment. And I try to stay in the role at work as much as possible. It helps me calibrate in difficult situations. I also aim to help my employees to define their role, since it's a key to a healthy workplace. But all the things I've done so far, they've been both fun, but I also see everything as an opportunity to learn. I've lived by the motto, how hard can it be? And often to realize it's damn hard. But I find the struggle is worth it, or at least often worth it. So what has been helpful in my career? What would I tell myself when I started this career? I would start with define your role. If you're part of a new team, make sure you all define what your roles are and in what context you are. The role as a lighting tech is different to the one as an operator, and an operator role is different to a designer. We all work towards the same goal. To define the roles is helpful. It will improve collaboration, make less room for conflict, and the team will be more efficient. It will also make you less stressed, guessing if you do what's expected of you. But also trust. Trust your inner self. Trust the newcomer. It's with a big portion of trust, together with a defined project, that people grow. And I think that will make the industry thrive. Without trust, the trust that was given to me before I thought I was ready, I think I'd be given up. But also listen. Listen to others. and listen to yourself. Listen to the experienced colleague, but listen also to the newcomer. The truth is often somewhere in between. And dare to change. If the path you're on doesn't feel right, find the courage to change and find something meaningful outside of work if you can. It's hard, but it might give you a good balance. And that's me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was story. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. It was wonderful to hear it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I was going to ask you what your advice would be to your younger self, but you covered that beautifully
Yeah.
at the end. Have you? I was going to start off the questions by saying, have you seen a sort of change in attitude towards sort of work-life, mental health in the theatres that you've worked in over the years now, or do you think there's still a long way to go? Or
I think it's both a long way to go, but I think we need to raise the topic.
Yeah.
That we do everything in a matter of getting people. We're there for a reason. We're there to bring a show forward. We're also humans.
Yes.
And we need to be sustainable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's only in recent years that people have started to give like presentations where they talk about their sort of personal journey. Because all through all the conference and all the talks I've ever heard, it was always, you know, I do this, it's great, I never make mistakes, all my work is wonderful, and that was how people gave talks. And it's only very recently, and it's brilliant, and I love it, and I hope it continues, that people are sort of willing to share things that go wrong and share their personal story. And it's quite hard to do that. I think, you know, it's only certain people who are able to do it.
Agree.
But only by sort of like listening to that kind of story do you realise that everyone's human, everybody makes mistakes, there are lots of different ways to do things, and it makes everybody else feel a bit better about, you know, their own journey. So I thank you for sharing it, and I think it's a really nice shift into how we talk about work. And it's not just work; it's, you know, who we are as people and everything. So,
but what I also learned was that we're such a social group. So no matter what happens, there are people around you you can lean on and say that this is not my forte. I don't know this. How can I evolve? Can you help me with this? This is not what I'm really great at. And how can I bring this forward?
Yeah, it's very rare that if you ask for help, people won't give it, isn't it? People are always really willing to help, and so it is being brave enough to ask. And as you say, acknowledge.
But this before and after, I think I've been in situations after that I've been strong in only because of the break. I told Natalie yesterday that I did a show with Björk in Manchester. And right there and then I had a console that I didn't really know. But it wasn't I couldn't choose the console. So, of course, I sat there with a manual, reading it, and the lighting techs around me looked at me saying, "You don't know the console. How can you get this job if you don't know the console?" Well, it's not about the console, really. It's about what you do with it, right? It's in the fingers. It's in the connection with the artist. So as long as you have everything set down, knowing that what I need to do, I can do that in a fairly short time. I can set up the console, and then I can still reach my or the artist's goals. Then that is what my strengths are. So, but I wouldn't know that unless I'd done this journey, I think.
I think you reminded me when you were saying you didn't know how to use the certain spotlights at the
The console
beginning.
or what it was.
When you first started. No, you reminded me of one of my first jobs when I didn't know how to relamp. There's certain stage luminaires, so I used to put them in a cupboard. To whenever something was broken, I had this cupboard somewhere, and I used to put them all in there because I didn't know what to do with them. And it never occurred to me that I could have asked someone to teach me. I mean, no one offered, but it never occurred to me. And so I think, like, I always say when people, I couldn't email them or I couldn't ask, or no, like it's very rare in all the people that we've reached out to over the years to be involved in and to do different things. It's very rare that somebody says no. I mean, I think we're quite persuasive, but in general, as you say, everybody that's passionate about lighting is so interested and supportive of passing on knowledge or sharing information.
Experience.
So you always ask, I think. But does
And
anyone
on that
else?
note, let's ask if anybody's got a question.
Does anyone have a question?
I have two questions. The artist you mentioned before that he gave you the second chance to come for his tour. Does he still perform, and does he want to have you again for lighting design or for operating? And if, would you do that?
The one that called again, Damien.
Yeah, Damien, yeah.
No.
No,
He hasn't asked, and I don't think I would do it again. After this long tour that we did, he was on a break for a while. And I moved on, but now I'm not doing lights anymore. I've turned down the offers because I'm not interested anymore. I'm more interested now in helping others achieve their lighting goals than
That's pretty good that you do that.
do that. I've done that. I know that I can do it. I've done my bucket list on lighting. And now let's move forward.
Okay, good. And the second question, could you imagine to work with wood again, where you were educated during the time?
I still do that.
Ah, cool.
At home.
At home. Okay, thank you.
Hey.
Could I ask something?
Yes.
I'm employed at a quite traditional old opera house, and with lots of men who never seems to not know things.
Exactly.
And the women there are a few of us, we actually tell the men when we don't know things. The men never tells us when they don't know things. Is this a gender issue, or is it just women in lighting with bad self-esteem, or what do we think? Do we have an idea, the crowd?
We sort of do have an idea on that from a survey that we saw or did, and it said that it was a gender-specific thing, and it was talking about job applications, and it stated that a man will look at a job application, and if he can do, like, if he looks through the spec and he can do 3, 4 of the things out of 10, he'll go for it, whereas a woman would always want to be able to do 8 or 9. And so that was it was an American study, wasn't it, that showed that?
Can't remember. But we also asked in our survey that we were talking about earlier, we had one specific question that asked people to rate their abilities. So we asked in creativity, technical knowledge,
Scientific knowledge,
et cetera,
Yeah.
to see if men and women rated themselves, very differently in those areas. And I think it's the sort of technology and sort of science, the women rate themselves very low with that knowledge. Now, whether that's true or not is another question, but just as their perception of what they know, that's always very low. So when we publish it, when we get round to it, that kind of thing we've tried to ask or trying to build in to find out. Am I right?
You're right. That's what the survey said. But women on the same question tended to rate themselves in creativity and artistic ability, whereas men rated themselves lower in that. So there was a sort of there is a gender bias in how people think about their skills, I believe, and consider confidence in going things, and maybe part of it is admitting that you don't know stuff is a different thing as well, different skill.
Did we ask anything about confidence and self? It's a huge survey. I can't remember. Did we ask anything about self-esteem?
No, I don't.
We'll have a look. We'll dig it out and
Good
have a look.
question. Another question at the front there.
In the industry, how did you combat like the bias or unconscious bias? Or did you face any?
I'm not sure. I've never had those goggles on. I realized that, of course, I've been submitted to that. But since I've never even brought that into my world of knowledge, I've just ignored it because I have a perfect right to be here as well as anyone else. So if someone doesn't think that I'm supposed to be here because I'm a woman, that's their problem. So I've just ignored it, even though it might have been harsh. I put that behind me and move on, sort of.
What do you think is the most important part of leading a team?
So many things. I think it's important to define first where we're heading, but also how each individual, what their tasks are to reach that goal. So if we're clear on how we do it, then we'll get there. And I also trust, or at least I'd like to trust, that all the employees, they have the knowledge themselves. So instead of telling someone what to do, let's see how you can find out for yourself how we get to the point where we all need to go.
You mentioned at the start that you're the head of lighting, sound, and video.
Yes.
Is that a position that was called that, or was there something along your path that made you want to veer out into the different areas of the industry?
This position is called that. That's the unit has both lighting, sound, and video in it, and also broadcast. But it's when I worked at the dramatic theater, I had head of machinery, I had visuals, I had sound and video and lighting there as well, together with prop makers and stuff. So all these specialists there will then take me to where I am now, sort of.
So I have same question as before. What's your power song?
My power song. When I have a really, really bad day in the morning, when I go to work, I put on the Eagles, Life in the Fast Lane. It's really good to walking to. I'm not sure if it's a power song, but I put it on and off I go.
Well, what's yours?
It's one of those. Mama said, "Knock you out." I lost the who is rapping it, but Mama said, "Knock you out."
Yeah. That's a good question. I was just to go back to the sort of mental health thing. I mean, obviously, the entertainment industry is a pretty tough industry to, you're working long hours, you're always inside a dark space, very difficult with family, very difficult to, stay healthy, eating takeaway, all of those things. It's architecture is much more desk-based. It's not as problematic. One of the questions in the survey we did ask was, does your company allow like time off for mental health, and sort of like a mental health day rather than a sick day. And overwhelmingly, it was a sort of no, never considered it, would pretend to be sick, or like there was a very small, I think, amount of people that said yes, my company is happy as if I am, suffering some way, they would support it. So that's obviously something that really needs to change and move forward, and that we're all comfortable to talk about it, and comfortable to ask our team leader, our employer, or to say, I'm struggling here, rather than pretend I've got a terrible cold or whatever. But yeah, we threw that in there as well. I just remembered.
But that's also part of the, at least the work environment laws now, that it's not just safety. It's the health is more than just the physical part. It's about organizations and how you plan stuff. And we have a far way to go, but it's
in the UK we have a thing called mental health first aid. So you can get a qualification as somebody who knows how to not cure anything, but literally apply the equivalent of physical first aid to somebody. Just what questions to ask and where to point them for proper help, and that proper help. And that's something that's only come on in the last few years, but it's really, really beneficial. Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll...
Anyone else? No?
Oh, yes, no, there's a question there.
He's been waiting a while.
Yeah.
So
I see, okay.
We're a bit curious about what you see in your future. Are you at the end of your lifetime achievements, or
no?
What's on the horizon?
Your lifetime
what's on the horizon? Organizations again, to get people to work better together. I think at least where we are now and where we are heading is finding ways for a big organization to work together in a smarter and healthier way. Yeah.
Excellent.
A question.
Oh.
What are the biggest challenges working with super modern technology in a very old building that you're currently in?
I think my colleagues in the audience will have the better answers to that. But at the opera right now, we have we do reruns that are 30 years old. We have one in stock that's from the 60s. All things are then, of course, designed with stuff that we don't have anymore. And the change of every fixture has to be thought of very, very carefully, because it doesn't just affect the current production, it also will affect the historic productions. And we know that all the luminaires that we have, the old ones, will eventually be gone. But we need to do the transition slowly. But then we need to find the time, of course, in the repertoire to do the redesign of those lights in every show that comes back. It's hard.
Interesting.
I think one of the problems now is that all productions, both in institutions and private and tours, the time is so much less. So the way that you learn the industry isn't possible today.
No.
So how do we help the young people learning? Because not everybody can go in an education in a school, because everybody doesn't learn that way. So how doesn't we lose the people that need the practice coming in a softer way to learn things?
Right now we have a collaboration with the school. So as soon as they need to do internships we meet them, we present the opera and what we can do in the different branches. If you want to work with sound, you want to work with lights, different kind of lights. You can work with broadcast. You can work with video. You show them the opera house, and then when they have their internships, we bring them in, and hopefully then they will teach us something, but also we can teach them into the world that we have. For this season, we just hired 3 students that were finished school this spring that we now have in our teams. So I think we have to help the young people into the world of ours. I think it's a huge thing that the industries that I'm part of can do, and in the institutions.
Okay, so
Okay.
I think we're going to move into the next presentation
No,
before we
you
take
can't-
a short